just a thought that I have seen that the basic the basic approach, the 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 very base of how a woman is looking at the world, as far as I have come near to a woman's mind and I've tried to understand, is that they think through a lens that I cannot even fathom, and that obviously has the kid in the center. They are always thinking about a family. In fact, when I look at societies or when I look at colonies, when I look the whole thing, or when I go to a mall or anywhere, I find that every kind of infrastructure that has been laid in the name of civilization has been laid keeping the family in the center. And family basically means that you are, simple nature's game of, because ultimately what we are products of nature. And everywhere when I look at in nature, the only two things are getting, that save the body and propagate the body. Genes are being saved, genes are being propagated. So I always find that the basic thing that civilization is doing is that they are saving the human body and they are propagating it. Here what I find is that because the woman's role is that they are the ones who are creating that body inside. Whereas man has the free will of impregnating maybe two or three women. It doesn't have any kind of what we can say liability or collateral liability just after the act. So I have observed that for a woman, the family, the kid is very important. That nest is very important.
This woman that you are talking of, is she a function merely of her body or also of the school she studied in, the college and university she went to, the belief system she inherited from her grandfather and mother, the kind of things she saw in the movies and the serials? Is she a function merely of her body or also of these things?
But these things are also a genesis. They are coming from somewhere. The university or the belief system.
No, they are not really coming from the woman herself. They are coming from the collective ignorance of mankind.
And the ignorance might have started from the biology itself.
That's true.
Yeah.
The ignorance starts from the body itself, right? And the ignorance is therefore on both the sides.
Acharyaji, the Marxist feminists say, it's a very cliche statement that sex is created, sex is born, but gender is created. So the fundamental probing is in the process of gendering. So sex is assigned to you when you are born by the doctor, seeing the chromosome that you carry and your genitals. But the gender that is assigned to you and the process of gendering
Fully
is
agree.
indeed very complicated.
Fully agree. That's why the female gender in, let's say, India, will be very different from a person of the same gender in a first world country. But physically they will be absolutely alike.
So two kinds of bodies are born, and so what forces decide which body is going to become so-called man and which body is going to become a woman? In this sense, the LGBTQ discourse is very revolutionary because they have proven that a female body can also be a man, that you can have genitals, you can have a vagina and be a man. So this is a revolution which is really trying to deconstruct the process of gendering ki agar if you are a male you have to be a man only. So
My argument that I would want, my basic argument is that when it comes to, I totally agree with the fact that a woman is born, but gendering is something that is yeah. My argument here, as far as my observation or my conviction stands, is that the biology has a very vital function in the basic approach of how they perceive the world. and that has the kid in the center. That is one of the most core values of their existence, because logically speaking, just my own logic, if I may, that nature, we are a part of nature. Apart from the fact that spirituality enables us to go beyond nature, but we are a part of nature. What are our basic function? Okay, we have the civilization, we are earning, we are but ultimately is propagating the body. So if the basic function of our existence as human beings or as any kind of creature in the animal kingdom is save your body and propagate the body, then the basic approach propagates from that objective, and that objective in itself, when looked at from a woman's perspective, it is that they have to think about the kid. They have that they, I मतलब ठीक है, gendering में, with gendering, the intensity with which they value that objective, that may change. A woman in America, she might not think about a kid or might not favor so much, but the fact that they have that value system of thinking about the kid itself, I think that very value system, that very value or that very outlook is something that is missing in man.
No, it's not
Missing
missing
or
in man.
negligent.
It's relatively smaller in man. But all that you are saying is applicable only as long as we take ourselves as physical beings, as you said, parts of the animal kingdom, driven purely by our physical desires. If we are driven purely by that, then obviously we live to just eat and reproduce. But that's not where we stand as human beings. I would agree that even in a well-educated and spiritually liberated woman, the desire for a kid would be probably relatively larger compared to that in a man. But I don't suppose that kind of a difference is a problem, because ultimately the earth does need kids, and I am saying this with all consideration. We are talking of responsible reproduction, we are not talking of zero reproduction. So we are not wanting a state where the woman becomes an absolutely zero woman with no desire at all to bear kids. That's not the objective, is that? That's not the objective. What we want to talk of is whether the compulsive desire or passion to keep the kid and the family at the center of her life is necessary, right? If the kid is just one of things in her life, what's the problem? What's the problem? Nobody would say in his right senses that we want a situation where the fertility rates drop to absolute zero. That's nobody's objective, no?
We started with the question not being upfront, but it's not about just women in the society. Generally, in the urban society, when nobody is upfront, they talk in terms of like hints, symbols, like in corporates, in like for example, if somebody handicapped, we don't say handicapped, we say some nice
We use
word.
euphemisms.
And like we hide that, so like the facts, like totally. Like,
See, that's when these things are absent in your life: fearlessness, love, truth. When the relationship has a lot of love, then you're not afraid to be blunt, because you know the other one would understand. You also know that the other one would not be hurt. You also know that being straight and blunt and direct deepens love, so you're not going to hesitate then. Equally, when you value truth, a lot, then you do not want to deal in symbols and indirect kind of diplomatic behavior. But when the most important values are missing and there is a lot of fear, and there is a chronic need for security, then you don't open up. So when that is happening, we probably need to look at the entire ecosystem rather than one single gender. Why is there so much of fear in the environment? And also, mind you, when there is fear, it would be affecting not only one gender but the entire population. In one gender, it's more readily visible to the other gender, because the other gender does not behave in that way, so they can spot it out. Or she is being just too roundabout. But the same kind of fear in the ecosystem is troubling men as well. Won't it be pertinent to see how even men have to cater to their own insecurities and their own stereotypes and their own false beliefs, right? Because if women have been trained to live and behave and be in a certain way, equally men have been trained to live and believe and be in a certain way. At this point, I'll present a certain thing to you all. You see, there are what we call as womanly values, right? You can identify a woman with those values. Human being giving value to this, this and this, and you will be easily able to say this person is a woman with almost 95% accuracy. Another human being giving value to this thing, for example, somebody giving value to, what do women give value to typically? What would you say? Yes? Children and the nest and clothes, emotionality. So these you could call as the female values, for want of a better word. I know it's a generalization, but because it is a general thing, so generalization here is not very useless. And then there are a set of what we can call as the manly values, right? What do you call as the manly values?
Achievement.
Chivalry, achievement, ambition, aggression. What we probably need to consider is whether there is a third set of values superior to both these sets. No point declaring one set higher than the other. If we indeed are caged consciousnesses yearning for freedom, then neither the womanly values nor the manly ones take us to our liberation, do they? One is emotional, one is logical. Neither of them necessarily give to you what you want. If I am the suffering consciousness, logic does not take me to liberation, nor do my emotions, because they all arise fundamentally from the same center of bondage. That which is arising from your bondage cannot lead you to liberation. So she is emotional, he is logical, right? She cares more for the nest, he cares more for ambition. Neither her nest will bring her deliverance, nor would his ambition bring him freedom. Right? So is it men versus women, or is it so that both men and women are equal partners in their slavery. It's just that either side calls its own slavery as better than that of the other side. I am enslaved, you are enslaved, but because I am enslaved, I call my slavery better than your slavery. Had this been an all women gathering, I am sure they would have had much the same things to say about men. Same in the sense of opposite. Opposite things in the same tenor. Why are men like this? Why are men so ugly? Why can't men understand subtle things? Why do they have to be so gross?
What's convoluted to us, what's convoluted and dishonest to us may be subtle and
It's subtle to
mysterious
them.
and
Subtle
beautiful
and
to them.
aesthetically nice.
Aesthetically.
Do you really have to punch in somebody's face to communicate? That's how they say. They say the way men talk to each other is like punching each other in face.
Very gross.
Now, it's very gross. What we are calling as convoluted and roundabout is in their language subtle and aesthetically beautiful, which is not true. I agree. That's not the case.
To us, maybe.
That's not the case to anybody. See, just as your manly stuff is a great thing only to you, similarly, their womanly stuff is obviously great only in their own value system. It's not an absolute virtue. There has to be a third set, that both men and women have to be educated into, indoctrinated into. If you turn the man into more of a man, then he is just an alpha gorilla. Right? If you turn the woman into more of a woman, then she is just the mate of the alpha gorilla. Right? I don't know how it sounds, but from where I see it, the man has to be demanned. The woman has to be dewomanized. I'm not talking of emasculation. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking of neutering and stuff. The man has to be liberated of the social and biological values that give him the persona of the man. Equally, the woman has to be liberated of the biology and the history that turns her into the kind of woman that we see on the road.
Degendering has to happen.
Yeah, degendering. That degendering has to happen, and equally a love and appreciation for the right values, right and gender independent values has to be fostered in both the boy and the girl, the man and the woman. Truth is beautiful. The woman is not beautiful, the man is not beautiful either. Truth is beautiful. Have a thing for truth. Compassion is wonderful. She is gorgeous, he is handsome. None of that is a patch on compassion. The compassionate one stands heads and shoulders above the gorgeous one or the handsome hunk. So these values have to be there. See, Shubhankar, I can see you restless, but the thing is, if in this society you are seeing a lot of distorted women, the law of duality dictates that there would be an equal amount of distortion in the men as well, because both are products of the same ecosystem. You cannot just say, oh, the women are distorted. The women might be distorted, and I concur that a lot of women are indeed distorted, but an equal kind of distortion would then there be necessarily present in the men folk as well.
Both the genders have their own set of problems.
And hence, unless both are taken care of, neither can be taken care of. Men's liberation just cannot happen without women's liberation.
Acharyaji, in light of what you just said, it's like small digression, but I'm sure it will add value to the discussion. Would you want to comment on this Indic symbol Ardhanarishwar? It seems that it is a mixture of both the genders.
It is not a mixture, and that pertains to something totally different. The way you see the Ardhanarishwar image, to me that's a distortion. Everything that exists in the language of Sankhya Darshan is Prakriti, which has been taken as feminine. So the entire body is female. Body means everything that exists, everything that is bodily. So the body itself is female. The world, the universe itself is female because it exists. That's how the thing has been connoted in the philosophy. And everything that exists has at its heart something that is non-existent in the sense of being formless, nameless. So there is Shakti, the female, which is bodily, and at the heart of Shakti is Shiva. That is the right depiction of Ardhanarishwar.
We see something else.
Now, what is shown, what's shown normally, I beg to say with all due consideration, is a caricature. You take 50% woman and 50% men and rivet them together. That's not Ardhanarishwar. This kind of symbolism is coming from people who just don't understand what that great word means. Shiva and Shakti are not two halves glued to each other. Shiva is the heart of Shakti. Shakti is not one half of Shiva. All that exists is Shakti herself, the feminine. Entire existence is feminine. At the heart of that feminine existence is Shiva.
And Shakti includes both man and woman.
All that exists.
All that exists.
Man, woman, the road, the concrete, the third gender, the fourth gender, the fifth gender, all that is feminine. Everything is feminine.
Why they called it feminine? Because, I mean, it's again got distorted into like
See,
women are.
It's like this.
Prakriti is
It's
womanly.
like this. I mean, you'll have to understand it almost graphically.
Because Acharyaji, those who charge Hinduism of sexism, they take, I mean, these two words, Purush, first mistake they do is they equate Purush with man, and then they say that why did these.
No, Purush is not man.
It's
Purush is consciousness. Pur is a fort. Pur.
The same word is also used for man. I mean,
It's used for man, it's a coincidence. It's a coincidence. Right? Knowledgeable people do not hide behind coincidences. In all languages of the world, we have words that have 2 or 3 meanings in 2 or 3 different contexts. Right? DEAR. You know of the number of meanings it holds. My dear is very dear. Now, it would be quite, in fact, malignant of me to pick up one meaning of the word and impose it on the other one, which is then totally unrelated thing in a different context. So, Purush is consciousness. Purush does not mean man or male, no. Pur means fort, Purush is the resident of the fort. The fort is the world in general or the body in particular. This is the fort. In this fort lives the Purush. Now, the body of the male is a fort, and equally the body of the female is also a fort. So the Purush lives both within the male and the female. Right? So in social language, you have the physical male and the physical female. In spiritual existential language, you have the physical male who is a female and the physical female who is obviously a female. And the only male is a cleaned or liberated consciousness. That is the only male. That is the only Purush. Everybody else is female. So, men are females with male genitals. Women are females with female genitals. But everybody is, in the spiritual sense, a female. But why do you want to get confused, bringing in the male, female, and then you do not know who is a male, who is a female, and get totally confused and end up entering the wrong washroom and get beaten up. So keep that aside. In social language, you have the physical male and the physical female. In spiritual existential language, you have the physical male who is a female and the physical female who is obviously a female. Now these two sets, they appear opposite to each other, but they are actually one. We'll remain caged there with the hope that one day circuiting the same loop will bring us out of the loop. If the woman is caged in the house, why don't you want to say that the man is caged in the office? Liberation lies in valuing what would turn you into a qualified human being. Qualified in the sense of being existentially there, high up there.